Hey, Alan, it's Bill Shilson. Since we can't meet in person, I figured probably the next best thing to do would just be make a video for you, sort of stating my premise, where I come from, what my thinking is, thought process, and let you digest that at your own pace. I'll try and throw some pages that I've printed out earlier in just for statistics, and you can go look up your own stats and see if they jive in reality or not. Um, so to introduce myself, I don't have any, medical background or training. I've just been studying this particular thing since probably January. I would say earlier than really any media has been on it. Um, I would say my hobby is sort of Armageddon. That that's just what interests me. Things that will have great societal impact, whether it's say solar flares, EMP, or pandemics, or financial catastrophe. That's just my bailiwick. It's what I pay attention to. So anyway, early on, I was listening to a lot of, let's call it, leading edge alternative news because no mainstream news was paying attention to it. So a lot of my stuff was coming from Hair on Fire, here comes the end of the world stuff. And I bought into it early. I was very excited about it early, got really prepared for stuff early. I went out and bought a oxygen generator. I bought oxygen tanks. I went and bought a half a dozen positive airflow respirator systems for my family. Go ahead and look them up. The Breathe Easy positive airflow paper systems, they ain't cheap. So this isn't just anecdotal. I'm not just, a keyboard warrior. I was like in this pretty solid to begin with. I'd kind of kept all my friends and, social media people sort of abreast of my own research. And I guess I'll get into what some of that was later. So my premise on this perspective is that it's a real virus, a real disease. I'm not denying any of that. My assertion is that the response is media driven and that politicians are kind of hands off, afraid of really taking a position on it just because of the society that we're in. It's just craziness. If you don't, buy into the mainstream media, then, the denier accusation people come out of the woodwork and just start, screaming stuff, and it's impossible to make any headway. So I kind of feel that the commission has sort of put this on your table and said, here, have a nice day, so they don't really have to deal with any fallout if they make what turns out to be a bad decision or what's really a good decision for the community, but it is against the mainstream narrative, so they don't really have to defend it. And I understand that. It's just the way politics is. But that's not doing you any favors. So I also assume that you are of good heart and you're not, owned by any special interests, and that your, ultimate desire is whatever is best for the community. Now, I want to say that our response, along with the whole rest of the country, has been err on the side of caution, but that has led us down a path of kind of economic destruction. There's all kinds of stats out there. 60% of the family businesses that closed due to this are never going to reopen. People aren't going to the movies, they're not going out doing social stuff anymore. And, there's just a million tangents that we can go into. People are social creatures. They need to be at these big sporting events together. They just need to be doing social stuff together. So there are a lot of really sideways aspects to this that we could spend all day talking about. But the main thesis that I want to push is that our response is really severely damaging the economic infrastructure And this is at a point where we need to be strong because this isn't over. However, if you want to call it an outbreak or pandemic or whatever, this issue is not over, I don't think. I mean, if it's going to go by history of previous pandemics, it's going to be something like, round 2 is 5 times as bad as round 1, and round 3 is 3 times as bad as round 1, and then you're done. But the biology of this thing doesn't really seem to be the same as previous influenza strains. If you want to put on your tinfoil hat, which I do regularly, this really looks like an engineered virus. There are components in it that are just impossible, to happen on their own. And the whole thesis of it coming from a bat, 600 miles away from Wuhan, it's just, I could talk about that crap all day. But it's a real virus. It's causing real disease. People are really dying. None of that is in dispute here. But who is dying is getting blown out of proportion by the media to drive whatever narrative I won't really, try and assert. But if you look at real cases, real statistics, our response is not justified just on real cases. So I'm going to try and just screenshot something in here real quick. If I can... I guess I can't flip the screen. Oh well, I'll just turn this upside down. Maybe that'll work. No, that's going to end up being backwards. All right, so anyway, in 2018, we had a bad flu season. 80,000 people died, according to the CDC. There's an Associated Press article I'm looking at here, September 26, 2018. CDC, 80,000 people died last year from the flu. So this current thing that we're going through, we've had basically double the amount of people die, from this Wuhan flu, whatever we want to call it, COVID. So is our response double what our response was in, 2018 or 2017? No, this is hair on fire stuff. This is crazy town. Let's look at the statistics of who is dying from this, right? Now, let me just say that my shooting from the hip statistic is, or assessment is, the more pills it takes to keep you alive, the worse off this disease is going to hit you. The higher your susceptibility is, more comorbidities is going to be a higher risk of infection, hospitalization, death. Right, so widely available statistics. I'm looking at something printed out from the CDC. I'll just run through it real quick since I can. Well, I'll just put this up just so you see what I'm looking, even though it's going to be backwards. Under 1 year old, 0.008% of the deaths. Right, so at the time that this was printed, which was June 17th, which we were kind of like in the throes of the thing at that time, where it was, everybody was like, "What the hell is going on?" 8 kids under 1 year old had died at that time with a trace of the Rona in their system, which now doesn't necessarily mean that's what killed them. The CDC has said that 6% of all the cases that have been attributed to the Rona, that's the only thing that they can attribute it to, not comorbidities. Like let's say these 8 infants were, had big problems with their lungs or heart or whatever, they probably had comorbidities. I don't know. From 1 to 4 years old, 5 deaths, 0.005%. 5 to 14 years old, 13 deaths. 15 to 24 year olds, 125 deaths. 25 to 34 year olds, 699 deaths. So at that time, that was 0.676% of the deaths, related to COVID. And again, maybe 6% of that is the real number. But anyway, 0.676% of all deaths is, from people 25 to 34 years old. If you add up all of those percentages, the 0.676, 0.121, you're still talking less than 1% of all the people that died, even attributed to the COVID, are less than 34 years old, right? Where I'm going with that is the school age kids and even their teachers, right? I mean, we got a lot of teachers that are under 35 years old, right? Next group is 35 to 44 years old. That was 1,780 people, 1.7%. So even in the next 10-year gap, right, you got 1.7% of the people that were 35 to 44 years old. Then you get into the 45 to 54-year-old category, and that was 4.8%. So what I would like to assert here is that we could have a normal functioning school system without the kids having to wear these stupid masks. Just it's going to bend their brains. These kids in the formative years, you put them in a society where they got to be, friggin' afraid of walking outside, afraid of going in a classroom, afraid of their fellow students and their teachers, just afraid of everything. Otherwise, why would they have to wear these ridiculous masks? People behind blast shields. I mean, holy moly, think about what this is doing to kids' brains in formative years, right? So my assertion is that the school system can easily function without really anybody being in danger if all of the kids are obviously under, 19 years of age, and even the teachers that could be, under 34 years of age. We got plenty of them, and they're really at no risk at all. In that next category, 45 to 54, which I'm sure we've got a lot of teachers that are in that category. Well, maybe those are the ones that should be doing virtual school or in some other capacity. And so again, I'm not saying that this is not a disease. It's that we could deal with it a lot differently and save our society, for lack of a better word, from imploding financially because of the domino effect of how we're dealing with it, right? So let me just take a tangent here. My wife and I went out to lunch the day before the commission meeting. We went to a place that we've been to many times over the years, Habanero's Mexican restaurant in Longwood, and there was one other car in the parking lot besides ours. I don't know if it was an employee car or a customer car, but and we didn't see that other person sitting at a table. So it was like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It's like lunchtime. We walk in there and, admittedly, my wife and I are both kind of militant anti-mask. That's, otherwise I wouldn't be here. So we walk in and the hostess is like, hair on fire. Do you have your masks? Well, yeah, we keep them in our pockets. Well, you're going to need to wear one, to be in here. We're like, okay, there's nobody in here. We're going to walk, 15 feet to a table to sit down and then take the masks off. This is how it works in every restaurant. You got to wear the stupid mask to walk. I mean, in one case at Bonefish Grill, it was to walk from the door 5 feet to sit down at a booth next to the door. And there were like 3 people at the desk. Oh, you got to have your mask on. It's like, and we're like smirking at them and, so it's ridiculous, especially in these restaurants. All right, so let's say you got a restaurant that's on, death's door because of this ridiculousness. People don't want to go out. They're afraid because of the hype. When they get to the restaurant, they get, browbeat into putting these ridiculous masks on to walk 5 feet, literally 5 feet to sit down and then take the stupid thing back off. Right, so people are just getting fed up with it. Now, the restaurants is a really good example of who's getting hit the hardest here. So you got the restaurant owner, the manager, the cooks, the dishwashers, the wait staff, all the people that are in your regular mom and pop restaurant. It's probably, one of my college jobs was a restaurant. So you probably got 20 people in that restaurant. Now, when that restaurant goes out of business, and again, 60% of them are not going to reopen, because there's only so much bleed that you can afford as a restaurant owner on paying your either rent or mortgage, whatever it is. I mean, those places are $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 a month. That's a gigantic nut. Then you've got all your regular overhead. Now, I don't know if you have any personal business experience, but this stuff doesn't just sprout out of the ground. When you want to start a business, you got a lot of money to cough up. You got, unemployment insurance and liability insurance and insurance for the structure. And, there's just all kinds of insurances. It's ridiculous. Then you got, payroll, and you got taxes. I mean, there's, like 30% of, any profit you make right there is just gone, right? So if the reaction to the disease puts businesses out of business, it's not just that one business closing. It's, all of the people, those 20 people that were employed there, they're now not paying their bills. They're not paying their rent. They're not paying their own mortgages. They may not be buying food. They're not paying for their own insurance. Then the cascade effect there is the people that they bought stuff from, the local grocer or, your local insurance guy or the bank even, the bank that's holding the notes on the mortgages, those guys aren't getting their money, right? And then it all cascades up and down. I mean, it's a gigantic snowball. So again, my assertion here is that the way that not just our county, but the way that we as a society are dealing with this is causing a much, much bigger problem that we're going to have to face, because you can only print money for so long, right? Even at the federal level, they can print money and send out $1,200 checks. Well, how long exactly do you think that can go on before the credit card is declined? And then everybody is out of a job and nobody's got, funny money coming in. What do you think is going to happen then? So maybe you and I can't solve anything on the grand, global scale or the national scale. Maybe all we can talk about is trying to keep our little community strong, because the whole rest of the place is going to fall apart. And, this is hard not to be emotional about. It's not so much when I was homeless. That wasn't really a big deal for, a teenage kid to sleep in his car. But I've run across people that are homeless, and it wrecks me, especially when you think about them having kids in tow. So enough of the emotional crap. Got to get rid of that. It just gets me every time thinking about it. Anyway, so that's my premise, is that the way that we're dealing with this is ultimately going to cause a much bigger problem, even health-wise, right, than the problem that we have. So, sorry, that was a long tangent. Who is this affecting? This is affecting primarily, the people that are dying this year anyway, right? You look at the statistics on who's dying, before COVID. What are the statistics on average life expectancy? And, the older you get, the more likely it is you're going to die. As, nobody gets off the rock alive, as my old man like to say. And the older you get, the more comorbidities you naturally have, the more pills it takes to keep you alive, and you're just more compromised. The older you get, the more likely you're going to die of this thing. That's just the way it is. So what we can do as a society is be honest about that and say, hey, listen, it's not like, I see these people literally walking down the street wearing a mask in the open air, in the fresh air, thinking that there's, a virus is going to jump out from behind a tree and run up their nose. People driving, alone in their own cars. I know the other day when I was up at the podium there and I was kind of like poking people in the eye, but serious, swear to God, how many more people have crashed their cars, hurt or killed somebody else because they're wearing masks that cover their vision and they don't have peripheral vision anymore, and they're wearing I've seen people wearing blast shields alone in their car. So how many of these people have had an accident, hurt themselves or somebody else because they're wearing a stupid mask because they're afraid? They don't know what they're afraid about. What they see on the news is, it's hair on fire stuff. Again, when this first started and I was first paying attention to this, there were videos coming out of China of people getting black bagged right off the street, and in retrospect, I'm like, how the hell was that camera there in the first place? How was the camera there? Just seeing this lady walking down the street, a car pulls up and literally black bags her, throws her in the van, and off they go. I was watching videos of the authorities going down the street and welding people's doors shut on their apartments and their homes. I'm like, holy crap, how how viral is this thing? It's totally out of control. It's insanity. So, that's the stuff I was watching where I was telling my friends and family, F and A, you better go buy some food and some masks and, get ready to hunker down for however many months you're going to need to be locked in your own house, right? So this was the initial story. And I was on this way early. Like I said, I bought all the stuff necessary to basically close my front door and check out of society for half a year if I needed to. So as it turns out, it's not that viral, really, societally speaking. Again, like I said on Tuesday, Wuhan has reported 0 new cases since May. Now, does anybody believe that? I don't, right? They probably got cases, maybe even lots of cases, but they're not shut down. They are back in business, right? The powers that be opened the place back up, said, go to work. We're not going to S-can our economy anymore because of this. You can look on YouTube for videos of, Wuhan pool party. This is the place where it all started. This is where, we're advertised millions of people dead or whatever. I mean, there's like 11 million people in that city, and it was this crazy town there. And now look up Wuhan pool party or look up Wuhan nightclubs. I mean, it's like non-existent there. So you have to juxtapose that perspective against, say, England. Now, England is hair on fire. They're like, we're getting ready to go back into lockdowns. We may have to, literally, honest to God, we may have to cancel Christmas if you boys and girls aren't good. Look at the difference between, say, Sweden, the way they're dealing with it, and Australia. Now, I said a lot of stuff on Tuesday that was meant to be provocative, and one of the things was, referring back to the people in the car wearing the masks. So, yes, it's ridiculous to be in your own car alone and wearing a mask. Now, why would somebody do that? Well, have you seen the videos in Australia of the cops literally smashing out car windows to drag somebody out of their own car and put them in handcuffs and take them away because they're not wearing a mask? That's real deal, right? So, is the person in his car wearing a mask because he saw that video? Or because he saw a news report on that politician in Georgia that wants to charge people for attempted murder for not wearing a mask, right? So now I know Zembauer made a point of saying, bringing out this, how many people have the police had interaction with, hauled away in cuffs or whatever, for not wearing a mask? And of course the answer is 0. And how many people have we issued citations to, given tickets? Because of course the answer is 0. It's not like, and I know that there was some backstory there, and they wanted to have those statistics ready to push back against public that was saying enough with the mask business, right? And I get that, it's politics, and I'm going to say that this is plausible deniability, right? The commissioners can say, well, we suggested the masks, but we haven't, put anybody in jail, so they can say hands off, but in reality, society is taking this totally differently, They're seeing people being dragged out of their car for not wearing a mask. They're seeing people up on a stage saying, I'm going to push for attempted murder if you don't wear a mask, right? So there's two sides to this coin. And whenever you get into all this theater, you have to take a step back and look at the statistics. Who is being affected and what can we do to protect them, right? Old people are being affected, right? And we've done a great job at protecting the old folks in the old folks' homes. Now, whether that was a state mandate or county mandate or however all that stuff works out, we've done a great job. Once we got a handle on it, we did a great job. I mean, freaking look at New York, right? I mean, putting viral people in in basically hospice care and in nursing homes and all that. Who ever thought that was a good idea? You can really go down some dark streets there. But we've done a great job of protecting our older population, our nursing home people, and all that stuff. Now, another tangent there, or an aside, is a lot of those people, I would venture, would say, listen, I don't care. I want to see my family. I don't care if it kills me in 2 weeks. I want to see my family. However long it takes to kill me, if I end up getting it, fine. But you're putting me in a prison and I can't see anybody I love. Here's another, gets emotional fast. But that's another aside. The people that are most adversely affected are really old. They got lots of comorbidities. They got a lot of pills keeping them alive. Some of them are on oxygen. Yeah, they're going to be affected by this thing. So look at who's being affected, and how can we best serve the people that are not affected and make their lives full and productive and not full of panic and fear. Basically, all the school-age kids can go to school with no worries. I think that there has yet to be, and technically this is probably not going to be accurate, but I don't think there is yet a documented case where a teacher got it from a kid and died, right? So just think about that for a minute. Go present that statistic to any teacher right now, and they're going to be, they're going straight to Emotionville. What are you talking about? You want me to go back into a classroom unprotected and risk my life for what? And it's because of the emotional theater getting, presented by the media. This is, somebody 2 weeks ago made the statement, this isn't politically driven. Really? I mean, does anybody believe that this isn't political? Has you guys not been alive for the last 4 years? Look at what's been going on, right? Look at what's going on right now with the cities on fire and all that stuff. There's a whole nother, tangent. But you got people being really fearful for their lives because of what they see on TV when the statistics don't back it up, right? And basically you could transpose these statistics, I think, in education, maybe to healthcare. Now, the way that this thing gets transmitted, I believe, anecdotally, is close proximity for a long time, right? Now, there were instances where, one person went to a church and gave it to, 25 other people, which seems kind of crazy, 25 other people, I don't know, maybe that's right, a radius of somebody sitting in a pew and 25 people sitting around them, I suppose that's possible, right? Then you got, bar cases. Now, in the case of the bars, who's at the bar, right? You got people obviously drinking, probably people drinking to excess. Does the alcohol do something to the system? Now, a lot of those people probably are also smokers, right? So what are the statistics of people getting hit hard by this that are smokers? I'm pretty sure that there are available statistics for people that are vapors that are getting hit by this. I mean, there's a, statistically viable segment of people that are their lungs are getting wrecked just from the vape, right? So you take somebody who's wrecked their lungs 25% or 50% or whatever from the vape, and then give them a relatively small dose of the Rona, and they're going to get it, right? So who is being affected? How do we get that message out? You got a lot of pills keeping you alive? Are you old? Are you really overweight? You got diabetes? Are you a vapor? Are you a chronic drinker? Drug users? Here's another thing, viral effects on people are immunodeficient a lot of the time, right? AIDS or whatever, because it's not necessarily just because of that lifestyle, but because of other things that go along with it, immunodeficiency from, drugs that they take or whatever. So, because it's not like everybody that's a homosexual has AIDS and dies, right? There's lots of studies on that. So viral effects on segments of the population that have lifestyle habits, choices, whatever. But this can be broken down where people can understand it better and know if they're in a vulnerable category or not. And now people that don't need to be afraid, school-age kids, regular members of society, can go back out in society, spend their money, right? So here's the thing, money velocity. Not only is it just that term, the velocity of money, it isn't just a financial mumbo jumbo. It's real both in society and at the government level, because the guy that doesn't go to dinner and spend his money at the restaurant and give the waitress a tip, the guy that stays home instead because he's afraid or he doesn't want to deal with the nonsense, he's holding on to his dollars. The restaurant owner doesn't get the money, the waitress doesn't get the money, the people that they usually buy stuff from don't get the money. But guess who else doesn't get the money? The tax man doesn't get the money. So the tax man doesn't get the money that the restaurant owner earned, the waitress earned, the dishwasher earned, and all the people that they, like every dollar, if you think about the rotation of a dollar bill, when it gets spent, like when I earn it, let's say I get taxed 30%, and then I go spend what's left of it, the 70, cents of it, I go spend that, or, let's say $100 to $70, right? I earn $100, government gets 30. I go spend that $70 somewhere else. Let's say I go to the Best Buy and I buy a set of headphones for $70. Uncle Sam gets 30% of that. What's left after that? I don't know, $50 or whatever. And then, and so on and so on. And basically every dollar that gets spent eventually gets totally consumed by the tax man. So all of these people not spending money, the tax man isn't getting his take. And that's another argument. But that can only go on for so long. And ultimately, we can't print money at the county level. Feds can print money, but that only goes on for so long. So we ain't solving any world crisis here, but where this is going, if not immediately turned around, is going to be a freaking train wreck. We're at 31 minutes and 50 seconds. I'm sure I've eaten up enough of your day. I'd be happy to help in my, non-professional capacity, but I've paid a lot of attention to this for a long time, and I'm worried for, where our little burg is going to go, and the nation. We can't do anything about the nation. All we can do is try and protect the people that depend on us for insight and rationale. So you got my info. Have a good day. Good luck to you.